But today, Linda says I have to talk about thread, which is one of my favorite topics. So these are just a few samples. These are from a class that I did last year, pre-COVID, on free motion quilting. And it might be something you kind of want to work your way towards, is practicing with different threads. Now this one was done with machine, not free motion, but just different threads and how they look so different against your fabric. Here's on a light background, hold that up so you can see, and on a darker background. Starts to give you some idea of the effects that you can get. Here's a little bit of just free motion stippling with white thread on gray. And then you can always prepare for yourself a nice little test panel. This was done with darker thread on lighter fabric, and it gives you just something to practice with. We should always be practicing, practicing, practicing. So I'm going to start off, first of all, just talking about types of thread. And then we're going to get on to the really interesting part, which is thread colors. If you know me at all, you know I love colors. So first off, what kind of thread can you use in your sewing machine? Whatever it likes. You can use, and I've just got a small selection in here, good old cotton. This is our signature cotton thread. Cotton's a nice thread to quilt with. It doesn't have a lot of shine to it. It can look a little chunkier on the surface. So if you want your quilting to show a little closer to a hand quilted look, you might want to go with a cotton thread. Or our go-to thread in the long arm department is our Isacord. Now this is a 40 weight polyester thread, has a little bit of shine to it, is about the same strength as a cotton. You can still snap it. The old line about, oh, you should never use polyester thread on your quilts because it will cut through the fabric. I have a feeling that goes back to the original polyester threads and to the days when your quilts were very often made with fabric that had been around for a long time because they were somebody's skirt and somebody's shirt and somebody's pants pieced into a quilt. So right now, the way they're making the polyester threads, the thread's going to give way before it's ever going to harm your fabric. So don't be afraid to use polyester. When it comes to polyesters, you have a choice of different weights of polyester. Now when it comes to running these different weights of thread in your sewing machine, the standard rules are always in play. Get your bobbin thread in, get it set tension-wise in the bobbin, the way your machine likes it. Try to pick a fairly neutral thread. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. And then adjust your top tension to match the thread that you're stitching with. So starting here, this is a great thread. This is Wonderfill 12 weight accent. I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera. Let's put it on something dark here. On here. This is a heavier thread, and you can see against the bright pink, you can see how chunky that looks. You might have to stitch a little slower. You might have to increase your stitch length a little bit, but this gives a really, really decorative effect when you are stitching with the 12 weight. That's about as heavy a thread as I have found you can run through a machine without causing yourself grief. And the whole point of learning a new skill like this is to do it the easy way. Don't stress yourself. Learn the basics and then branch out. After that, we've got our 40 weights, we've got our 50 to 60 weights in the cottons, and then we start getting finer. This guy, this is an 80 weight. And if you don't know the difference of the numbers in your thread, it's really quite simple, and I know we've mentioned it in a lot of other videos with some of our other people. The higher the number, the finer the thread. So this is a Decobob 80 weight compared to an Isacord 40 weight polyester. So your Decobob is quite a bit finer. Decobob's what we use in the bobbins in the long arm area. It's a wonderful thread for bobbins. It's great. I love it for hand piecing or hand applique. If you like to do needle turn applique, great stuff. Just disappears. No problem at all. And plenty strong enough to handle that English paper piecing. Now, if you really want thread that disappears, this is a 100 weight Invisifil. Even though these are both Invisifil, it comes in different colors, it's really hard to see on the surface of your fabrics. I've pulled this across all of these fabrics and it just, even on the bright pink, pretty much disappears. And this is a silver gray. So if it's really important to you to have that thread just fade away into nothing, consider using some of these lighter weight threads. It's not going to make a difference to how your quilting looks, because the quilting's all about the puff anyways, but it's not going to interrupt what the eye sees on the quilting. So when it comes to types of thread, pretty much anything goes. I didn't bring any out, but you can see even on some of my samples here, you can stitch with your metallic threads. You can free motion with metallic thread. And my all-time favorite, and I'm going to make you come into the store to see it, Sulky Holographic Sliver, the pearlescent, opalescent they call it. Has no color on its own, but it has a reflective rainbow look, and you can put that on pretty much any color and it looks amazing. It's a little tricky to work with. You have to set your machine up specifically for it, but just to give that accent to a Christmas quilt, a snow scene, it's amazing. So that's types of thread. Don't be afraid to give it a try. But the fun part about thread, at least for me, as you can see, I have thread. I have lots of thread. Lots and lots of thread. The fun part for me is choosing the colors of the thread. So what I've got here, I want to show you what I do when somebody brings in a quilt and it has different colors in it. How do we choose a thread that's going to look nice on all these fabrics? What do we do? Well, the first thing I would check with the customer about is how much do you want your thread to show? What do you want to focus on? Do we want to see the thread or do we want to see the fabric? Look at that, that's gorgeous. So this obviously is our print fabric. We've got a soft bluey gray in there. And then we've got some teals and some pinks and a little bit of a hot kind of a magenta color in the center. And I just pulled a few fabrics here that kind of went with that one. So what I would do is I would say, okay, we want the thread to blend. How am I going to get a thread to blend with that and that? Well, first thing we do is we give it a test run. So this is a hot pink. Now obviously it's going to disappear on this guy. Can you see it on that one? You can see how that stands out. We call this puddling. We're just going to puddle the thread on there and see how it shows. Now at this point, it's a personal preference. Most people want their threads to blend, but some quilters want to see the thread. They're going to all that work, they might as well see it. So it's not a case of right and wrong, it's a case of personal preference. And there are people who would use the bright pink across all those fabrics. That's completely up to you. But now what if we don't? What if we don't want to see quite that much thread? What if we wanted to use maybe something in this range here? This is a little darker one. So if I drape that over the fabrics, let's do some puddling here. So that pretty much disappears on the print. Obviously it's not really obvious on this fabric, but it's standing out a fair bit on that pink, and it's actually standing out a fair bit on this pink print. The reason for that is its color. Let's pull this other pink. When we talk about colors, everybody's probably, remember, you know Christmas, red and green? Okay, we got red and green. We just have lighter versions of them. They're complementary colors on the color wheel, and they're always going to show the most. So maybe this isn't, even though it's in there, and even though it's okay there, maybe this isn't going to be the best thread for us if we want our thread to blend. What else could we try? Well, we could try a softer pink. We've got pink here. We've got soft pink in there. Let's see how soft pink would work. Oh, that disappears on this one. It's not bad on the print, but it's really obvious on the dark pink. So this is where you're going to look at your quilt and say, I have a lot of this, I have a lot of this, I have a little bit of this one. Maybe that would work best for me. I'm going to see the quilting on that bright pink, but there's only a little bit of it, so that would be okay. That one's not too bad. That one's not too bad. How does it work on this guy? Oh, see, that pretty much disappears. Two aspects of color. There's what we call the hue, which is the color of the whatever we're talking about, the fabric, the thread, anything. That's the actual color. And then we talk about the value, which is how light or dark it is. So this is a pink there, and on that soft greeny teal color, it's not super obvious. Same color, we go to a darker one, so a more vibrant, darker value, and it's going to show up a lot more, even though it's pretty much the same color, same hue. I had a line in the color theory class that says, color takes the credit, but value does the work. When in doubt, It's the value of things, the lightness or darkness, that's going to make the difference. Now, if you're just beginning in your adventure of free motion quilting, you probably want to choose a thread that is going to blend in. And we're not going to say it's going to hide your mistakes. We're going to say it's going to make the quilting more obvious than the thread. So what other colors have we got in our print fabric? Well, gray. And gray is a really, really popular color nowadays. And there's lots of different grays. So if I pull this guy up here, move that pink. So this thread is almost exactly the color of the gray in there. But when I pull that out like that, it doesn't blend as well as I might like. So, thankfully, there's lots of grays. And here's a nice soft gray that's going to pretty much disappear. I like that. If I was helping a customer choose threads for a quilt with these fabrics in it, I would automatically go to these neutral grays, because on the pink, they work. On the teal, they work. On the print, they work. And even on the bright pink, it's not that bad. A little bit of a shimmer, not too disruptive on the eye. So. But what if you don't want your thread to blend away? What if you like the look of thread showing? And I have customers that love the way the thread behaves on things. So what if, let's use this guy, what if we went to a really dark thread? Like that. That's a dark gray. You can really see that. And of course you're going to see it even more on these light ones. Not quite so much on your prints. But if this is the look that you like in your quilting, go for it. Not a problem. It can be very, very effective. So, the other question I get a lot is, well, there's lots of colors in my quilt. Why can't we use a variegated? Well, you certainly can. The thing with variegated threads is they always show somewhere. This isn't the best choice for this guy because it's a red, yellow, green, and blue here, variegated. I'll put on there. So you can see that hopefully on there. Let's put it on the lighter colors. The thing with variegated threads is because you can see them, let's say you have a, here's one here, that's a good one. That's a good one. Are we bored with thread yet? I love thread. I can talk for hours about threads. So this is a variegated in similar colors to what we're working with. It's got the pinks, the purples, and the teals. So the thing with this is you might not see the thread on all the fabrics. You just get little pops of color here and there. They can be really fun on kids' quilts. So don't be afraid to use them. Definitely not a thread that's going to blend in. The kids love vibrant colors. And a variegated is a good way to help put a little bit of interest if you have large areas in your quilt that are solid colors, some of those nice bright konas. I think that's going to be on the plan for tomorrow. Is Linda is going to be talking about konas, wonderful solid colors. So that's how I see threads. I got some more fabric here. Where'd I put it? Let's have a look at this. If I stack this up too high, Tyler's going to get upset with me because I'll ruin the focus on the camera. So I'm just going to shift a couple of these out of the way. Let's take this guy out of the way. Take that one out. So we have now just a different range of fabrics. Also nice and soft. Also a bit of a floral in there. So a print with a white background this time. And a couple of coordinates from the same line. Nice soft green. So, how are we going to choose thread for this? Well, your first instinct is to go with a white. Pretty obvious. Doesn't show it all on there. Yeah, it's pretty good on that pale green. Going to show a little bit on our soft lilac, but if you'll notice, when I put a big pile of this is my favorite white. This is actually a soft white, has a little bit of a creamy cast to it. The polyesters tend just to reflect the color they're sitting on. So even though I pile lots of white thread on there, that's not going to stand out too much on your quilt. And I think in this case, the white would be a perfect choice. But maybe you just want to be a little bit bolder. And you don't mind your quilting showing a little bit. So if we look at our print, we've got some very pale yellows in here. We have a soft lilac-y shade. Would that be? What would happen if we quilted with this guy, which is a soft lilac? It's amazing how much that stands out on the white. You can see it on the green. I can even see it on there. You know, I'm not liking that. That, I think, would take the eye away from all the hard work you've put into your quilt. Wouldn't be my first choice. But that's me. Maybe you would love it. Maybe you would use something like that guy. This is another. That's almost a perfect match to that one. So there would be no reason that you couldn't use one of the lilacs on there. A lot of it depends on how much of each fabric you happen to have in your quilt. Line this guy up. I'm horrible at not fastening these down and get these threads all over everywhere. So that's quite often a color range that we get quilts in. Fairly easy to choose threads for that. But what happens when we get things like this? Oh, holy cow. So what thread would we quilt with this? Assuming that we kind of want our quilting to disappear, our thread to kind of blend in. This is not blendy fabric at all. So, obvious choices. Black. We don't quilt too often with black thread. we go. Second obvious choice, what if we went to one of these pinks? It's nice when you have fabric that's only got like 3 colors in it. Can you see those? You guys probably can't see any of this. And third choice, although this is the bold one. So it's pretty obvious here that the same thread and the same fabric line, we might make different choices depending on which of these fabrics we had the most of. It just shows you that your background color is very important to your thread choice. In this case, the black thread is pretty much going to disappear except where it happens to skim over one of the flowers. But over here on this one, where there's a lot more flowers and a lot less background, I think I might be inclined to use the pink, or surprisingly, even the green. The green looks pretty good on there. Whereas the green and the pink on this one are much more obvious, much more visible to the eye. So, if you want your quilting to show, go for it. So, just to show you the difference, I'm going to leave that green on there, and I'm going to pull the variegated out again. So there's a variegated thread against the black. Now obviously this is white. There's a really chunky look with that heavier thread in the white. But if I were to pull, even though this is a gray Invisifil 100 weight, fine as a hair on there. So when you go to quilt your quilts at home or your little panels and you're not sure, spread it out, take assorted threads, whatever you're contemplating using, make little puddles, and then always step back a couple of paces and say, what do I like the look of? What is exciting without taking away from all the hard work I've put into this quilt? So that's about everything I wanted to talk about today when it comes to thread. Stay safe, stay calm, stay kind to everybody.